Hello, I'm Kurt Libke, Executive Director of Klamath Film, and you just watched How to Bend Concrete in 108 Easy Steps, an interesting look at the process behind modern art with practical purpose from this year's Northern Shorts category for the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Joining us now is Mahesh Madhav, Director of and the star of the film, Neal Aronowitz. Mahesh and Neal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
So it is oddly mesmerizing seeing the artwork come to form that you do, Neal. But how did you become an expert in molding concrete? Was this a skill taught to you or something you invented? And what drew you to it?
Well, I've been in the tile and stone business for about 25 years, so I have some familiarity with concrete. But this particular material is very innovative and only about 10 years old. I read about it on a blog, and so it intrigued me. Not many people had tried to make art or furniture with it, and so it was really a blending of my lifelong interest in art and design, some of the skills I developed in my tile and stone business, and it all came together. So, the technical and the creative in a very intriguing material and an intriguing form, and it kind of once the idea was planted in my mind, it had a life of its own, and it was a really wonderful process to bring it to life.
So, since this is a newer material, how much trial and error went into mastering the right mix of materials and technique? And how many of these moldable concrete projects would you estimate you've done so far?
Well, I've actually made about 15 of these tables, but it was really the first one was really an epic adventure. And I had several of what I call all is lost moments. I mean, nobody had ever done what I did before, and I was in consultation with the technical team of that company. But there was so many mistakes I made, and I can't even get into it in the little time that we have. But there were so many times where I had to stop for a few months and figure out the next step. And I'll just give you one for instance. The mold, as you can see in the film, is made out of wood. The first mold I ever made was made out of foam, and I hadn't realized. Of course, it seems so obvious now, but concrete gets very hot when it cures. So I covered it over. I came back a few hours later, and the foam had melted. So that was about $800 worth of work down the tubes, and it took me 2 months to figure it out how to do the wooden mold and to make it. So that was just one of several all is lost moments, but it was a huge learning curve, and to this day, I'm still getting it. There's still things to learn. It's a very dynamic process, but it's not fixed by any means. It's still growing.
Well, I'm sure Mahesh can verify, but as a filmmaker too, the early days of learning the craft, there's a lot of projects that are done that you never want anyone to see the light of day.
Absolutely. And Neil just hit the nail on the head. Everything that he said about failure and the different uh, things that go wrong in filmmaking. This is my first film that's longer than 2 minutes, and everything that you can say about content creation, whether it's web design, whether it's making a table, whether it's making a movie, everybody goes through those same problems. And I think one of the reasons why people tend to connect with this film is because it is a treatise towards any kind of content creation.
So I know you've worked on a lot of projects like music videos and whatnot, but what made you want to take the foray into documentary storytelling?
Yeah, this project started from a class that I took at Open Signal. It's a media center up here in Northeast Portland, and this actual um, the first interview here with Neil started there in the class at Open Signal, and it kind of grew out from there. I reached out to Neil to be a kind of a guinea pig for our learning process of what it's like to sit someone down for an interview, how to light them, how to craft a story out of that. And after we did that first interview, I wanted to get some B-roll, so I said let's go to your studio there. You could see in the backdrop for his video, and so um, we watched him for the first time, cast that world console. And I'm like, well, if we're going to make this film, let's just keep going until we have all the footage that we need and go all the way through the end. So it was 12 more days in the studio over the course of about 4 or 5 months. We filmed him about 12 times, and ended up crafting a story out of that. And I'd never done this before, and I didn't expect it to be such a large project. But I'm really glad that we all were a part of it and learned so much in the process. And like here we are.
Well, I guess this would be a good follow-up then for both of you in terms of what sort of challenges came with the production that had to be overcome and what sort of lessons were learned from it.
One of the things I learned as a documentarian is that as we see, uh, it's kind of a run and gun camera situation where anything might happen. And in the process of Neil casting his table and wrapping it for the first time, the thing that went wrong was that um, as he's wrapping it, there was like it was 3 inches short, and so he had to unwrap the entire thing and then do it again. And me as a filmmaker was like, wow, I can take 3 takes of this and take and film it from all different angles. And so it's amazing to actually get a positive situation of a failure that happened uh, on the design side turns into like more footage for me on the film side.
And Neil, having cameras in your face going through the process, did that change anything?
Um, well, actually, Mahesh was also had his wife as an assistant, and the two of them worked so well together. And I actually felt very comfortable with them. And of course, in order to execute this piece, I have to be so focused that I can't even remember them being there while I'm working. I mean, every once in a while, I was thinking, well, maybe I should get a good camera angle. Is my did I shave my head this morning? I mean, little things that I was. Every once in a while, I'd be aware, but it's such an intense process. It's I could not focus on anything else. And Mahesh and his wife were so professional that they really made it easy. So it was a very comfortable process.
The process behind the construction is utterly fascinating. It looks like it's a very Zen-like experience to at least from the witness perspective. I'm sure going through it, it's much more intensive, and you're thinking really hard. I It made me think back to the days of when I used to do a lot of model building and whatnot, and right around the time that I get to be about 95% done, that's when the panic attacks would set in of just, oh man, I put in all this work. Don't let me screw up this one little last piece. Do you
Yeah.
experience that in the course of it? Like it's supposed to be 108 easy steps, but when you get to 105, do you start freaking out a little bit?
Oh, totally. And actually, I think it was shown very well in the film when I talk about how you only get one shot at this, and if you screw it up, it's very expensive and it takes a lot of time. So there were several steps where if you make a wrong turn, it could add 10 hours to the whole process or 20. So there's a lot of critical moments, and so it does take an extreme focus, and the price that you pay for not being in that Zen focus is a lot of time and a lot of work. And that's really so you really have to be in the zone, and that's one of the things that I love about it is that it draws the best out of you because you really have to concentrate, focus, and be at your best.
Yeah, the
There's an
concentration I think is kind of the undertone of this film as well. And you mentioned Zen, and if you take a look at the play on the title of How to Bend Concrete, it's kind of like how do you put yourself in the correct mental position or mental posture to be able to do this kind of work with such intensity and such enthusiasm, but still then let it go at the end of the day and let it live on its own.
It's not that different from filmmaking and from an abstract perspective. And I know that this film has gone through multiple changes over time. There's an old adage in art that a project is never actually finished. You just either run out of time or money, or usually both, right? So, uh, how did this film evolve over time as you kept reworking it a little bit?
Yeah, going backwards in during quarantine, I learned how to mix 5.1 audio, and so you know at Klamath, for the first time, we'll be able to watch a DCP that has surround sound with the dialogue in the front and the background music in the back. So I'm really excited about that. So you're totally right. This just keeps going, and you're able to learn something and keep crafting and making it better. Um, so the film started off with all the footage I put together. I was able to craft a 25-minute version, and that one had a little bit of trouble getting up on the film circuit just because of the length. And so we were able to whittle it down, but still keep uh, the core storyline intact, the core teaching intact in a way, and we got it down to the 16.5 minute that is now shown. So it's a little bit of like knowing how to kill your darlings, right? And destroy what you like so that you are just left with what you love. And that's another part of the process of design, I think.
The cutting room floor can be a cruel mistress sometimes, but it's a necessity. Neil, in your process, does the same kind of apply where uh, the client needs it by such and such date? So it may not be 100% finished, but it's good enough. It's got to get out the door.
Well, yeah, there's nothing like a deadline to get things going, and it's and it's funny because I'm making one of these right now, and I was running out of time, and I spoke to the client who's in England, and he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm in no rush." And they say that a project extends for as long as you're allowed for its completion. Uh, so, so that's always a challenge, and art always comes down to decisions to make. And like this story could have been told in so many ways, and you have to make decisions of what are you going to do. You kill your darlings because the story is going to go in a certain direction, and you have to stick to that. And there are so many decisions with design. You've got to eliminate this, eliminate that, and what is the story that the piece is telling, and you have to kind of whittle it down and narrow it down. And the biggest challenge for me is, I do not believe in terms of art, at least in my design, that the perfect is the enemy of the good. It's got to be perfect. I mean, I can't let it go unless it's perfect. And it's very mysterious how it happens. Like sometimes I think, oh my God, this is going to take like another month. And then I walk in one day and it's like, it's done. you know, it's like gremlins work on it while I'm gone. I don't know, but yeah, it's a series of choices, and then there's a commitment. All right, this is the story, this is the piece, it ends here, and then you just have to let go at some point, and that's
I
the
used
perfection.
I used to work in the music industry in Hollywood many years ago, and I saw bands self-destruct because they would never hand in their album. They kept re-recording songs over and over again, and 5 years later, they're still in the studio, and the fans have forgotten all about them.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I heard an interview with Todd Rundgren about 2 weeks ago, and the record companies loved him because he was in and out of the studio. He made them, he made them, record, and there was no games played. He just got in and out very quickly, and he talked about there were some artists who were constantly doing another take, another take, another take. And at some point, you've got to just bite the bullet and let go, and that's where the vulnerability comes in as well.
Record 100 takes and you use take three and that the final recording. That sort of thing happened a lot. What do you hope people learn from this story, or at least take away from the film?
I think.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm sure Mahesh has already spoken eloquently about that in other forums, but I feel like I would hope that people understand that there's no comfort in doing artwork, that it takes, you're putting yourself out there, and you're saying, well, this is me, this is what I'm doing. you know People, you worry that someone's going to say you're a fool, you're no good, this is amateurish, and you have to kind of stick with your vision, and you know the art has to come from within, and you realize it, and let the chips, fly where they may. It's just going to. You've got to follow the vision right to the end and not worry about what people are going to think. And that's when the miracles happen.
So, Neal, have you utilized this technique venturing into other forms? I know the film profile is a table, and you've done multiple tables for clients, but have you developed other notable works with this material?
There are a couple of other tables that I've created with the same material, and I'm actually working on some vessels and some lighting, some candlesticks. I've gotten requests to have smaller pieces that are more affordable, so I've been playing around with that. The challenge is I keep getting requests for the tables, and they take like 100 hours each. So it's trying to carve out a little bit of time. But I do want to explore this material. I've had a design critic in New York said, this is your thing, and you've got to exploit it. So looking at it a little cynically, this is, it's sort of my gimmick. If you if you look at it cynically, or it's my material, that's my innovation in the design world, and I need to explore it. So I'm trying to create new pieces besides tables, and there are things in the works for sure.
I'm curious about the weight too. I mean, concrete is not a easily transportable or light material. So how how much are these tables weighing approximately once they're done with them? Do you need a forklift to move them around, or?
No, actually, two strong people can lift them. They're about 175 pounds, so they're
Okay.
they're surprisingly light when you think about concrete furniture. So it's heavy for sure. It's not something you put in your car from IKEA, but two people can definitely manage it. It is manageable. It's not it's cheap. I've shipped several to England, and air freight's about $1,500. So it's not cheap, but it is a manageable weight. Yeah.
The film subtly shows an interesting aspect and dilemma that's always existed in art, and that's finding the delicate balance between creativity and commerciality. There's the old thought of, well, how do people make a living creating art argument, and then if you're making it commercial, are you sacrificing the consistency and the authenticity of your art, regardless of genre that we're talking about, whether it's form or music or film or whatever. Was that an intentional topic to try to broach in the film, or did that just sort of naturally come out in the process of explaining how Neal goes about creating his art?
One of the things that could have been explored in the film but was not is the monetization of design and artwork. It's interesting because when I decided to embark on a career as an artist slash designer, I did it with at a time in my life when I said I've got to do this. This is like a passion of mine. I'm going to make things that only please me. I'm not going to think about money. I'm just going to make things that are interesting to me. And that's the challenge. And I got very successful with these first couple of pieces that I made. And inevitably, it comes in like, what can I do to get more popular? And it's the kiss of death. I mean, money's a reality. We always have to think about it. But I've gotten to where I've gotten because of the creative impulse and the decision not to bring money into it. So that's my challenge is to keep it pure, and at the same time to have a roof over my head. So it's an interesting duality to constantly play with. It's always there. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think
this was
that's
a
what makes the art powerful.
this was a passion project, and that I think it shines through that the story that was created about Neal is also my story and my ability to try to forge my way in this crazy media field. And I totally agree with Neil. It's like if you have the ability to just follow your passion, then somehow the universe will conspire with you to make that monetarily feasible.
So the film is called 108 Easy Steps, or How to Bend Concrete in 108 Easy Steps, but I don't believe you on the easy part of that, the title there. It seems anything but easy. So what is it about this process that drew you to it when it seems like, and I'm no expert here when it comes to construction or tables or anything like that, but it seems like there would be a far easier method involved in constructing things of this nature.
Well, I sometimes this was not by plan, and I just realized that I like to make things that force people to say, like, how the hell did he do this? That are so challenging. And I really wish I could come up with a piece that takes 10 hours to make. It would be very convenient. This is just the way I work, and it's really, it's not by choice. I actually have made a metal version of the World Console that somebody else makes for me, and that's kind of nice. But I seem to have a knack of I also make lighting, and all my pieces take at least 60 hours. So it's not by choice. It's really, I've kind of fallen into and discovered that I like to make things that are so difficult and complex, and it, I feel like that's what gives it the power in the end. And it's really the part of the pleasure of it too, is that there's about 90% of it is grunt work, and then the last 10%, it's just, I get chills because it's like it starts to come alive, and you really, it responds, and it just makes it worth it. And it's and I feel like all the creative power and all the energy that went into it shows as the final result, and so it gives it its power.
So, having seen your designs now through the film, where can people see some of your finished products? I know you mentioned that you've shipped some overseas, but on a more
Mhm.
local level, can people find your tables in a random like waiting room at a business or something?
Hardly. Um, the the people who've been buying mine are really like the 1% of the 1% for the most part. I
Mhm.
mean, there's a showroom in Vancouver, BC called Switzer Creative, and they show my pieces there. And the rest of it's online. I'm on a website called First Dibs, and some and on I've got my own website, nealaronowitz.com. And especially in these times, every all the artists have to really up their game online, which means better photography, video. And I think showrooms for a while are going to be a thing of the past. So it's really the online world is really the interface at this point. But yeah, I'd love to. I've had requests to show in galleries in Milan, but they want me to supply it. They want me to pay for shipping, and I haven't really. I wanted to see somebody more committed before I do something like that.
Well, we're certainly hoping that film festivals can still be in person, but we are going on online as well for that. Any final thoughts from both of you about your film and what you would like people to know?
There was a really great story of, we were talking about who's purchasing the table, and there was a designer from England that had contacted Neil, saying that he had a client who was interested, and Neil volunteered to share this film. Like, well, we just created this film. Why don't you go and take a look at this? And so we sent them a private link to the video, and so the designer and his client watched the film, and a week later they purchased the table. And so the really neat part was that the client was Kate Blanchett, and so I was like, wow, it's so amazing that Kate Blanchett has seen my film. That's what I got out of it.
I'm sure it's not necessarily intentional, but Neil, this film may be the best form of advertising you will ever have done for your business.
Yeah, you can't buy this kind of advertising. It's really wonderful, and that's it's really since I made this decision, and it was about 6 years ago, to be an artist and designer. As Mahesh was talking about earlier, the universe kind of conspires. Once you make that commitment, doors open, and this is just one of many miracles. Like, to have this film made, it's just these kind of interactions and opportunities just come up that are just it's just incredible. So yeah, it's been a wonderful process.
Hang on, that's me.
And one thing I'd like to say is, if you are interested in this film with regards to like educational curriculum, We actually just got distribution at films.com. And so if you're an educator in the art design field, the film is now available as of September up on films.com.
Wow.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Neal. And in addition to being available online through Eventive, people can catch How to Bend Concrete in 108 Easy Steps in person at the Ross Ragland Theater here in Klamath Falls on Sunday, September 20th at 12:30 p.m. for the 8th annual Klamath Independent Film Festival. Thank you, both of you, and we uh, we look forward to seeing more projects from Mahesh and maybe spotting a random table from Neal next time I'm up in the Portland area.
Let's
Thanks
hope
so much.
so. Okay. Thank you, Cook.
Take care.